And hello again, everybody. Welcome into the Fieldhouse Files live post-game show. Sorry, I'm a little later than usual. That was a crazy game with a lot of numbers and stats to look up, including the next game. We know this series now will continue on. That'll be with Game 6 coming up Thursday at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, an earlier tip time. I know fans will probably appreciate that. It'll be a 6:30 p.m. start rather than the 9 p.m. That the 76ers Knicks game will be played. So it's the first game of a double header. Welcome in for those of you who have joining live. Others will be jumping in, and many more on the Fieldhouse Files podcast. Already a couple of loyal listeners already in here. Questions ready to go. Let's get started there here in just a second. A 115-95 Pacers loss. They looked terrible over the final three quarters. Used a 15-2 run in the first quarter, and then we saw the Bucks go on, what was it, a 17-2 run in that second quarter. Pacers went 7 minutes with just one field goal. That's concerning, and they just didn't look themselves across a number of departments. We'll get into all that here on the post-game show. Let's go to some of the comments here. It says, Dean says, as a fan, I can accept a loss, but this was inexplicably horrendous against a very depleted Bucks team. Did the emotional home game take a physical toll on this team? I don't think so, Dean. I think this was mental, not physical. I didn't see tired shots. I didn't see tired bodies. I didn't see guys that physically couldn't complete what they wanted to do. I saw a team that has been mentally weak much throughout the season. I see a team that lacks the character to go into a weaker opponent, and that's exactly what this Bucks team is without Giannis and without Dame, and they don't handle their business. It seems like any time in a loss, I talk about what the Pacers have done, losing now a dozen plus games this season in a game they're favored, they should comfortably win, and against an opponent that is just doesn't match up. If both teams play their best game or their average game, the Pacers would win every single time. But that's why they have that famous saying. That's why they play the games like tonight, because everyone surely expected the Pacers to come in and have success in this one. I don't think there's any doubt about that, knowing the stakes. And here's the big thing, and that I emphasize at the top of my column at fieldhousefiles.com. If the Pacers had won this game, consider this. They would go 5 days between games. You don't think that matters for a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, who's still not 100%, or anybody on this roster, quite frankly, who is nursing something? At this point in the season, there's all kinds of little things. They're not going to put on an injury report sprained ankle when they know full well the guy's going to play through it. Or sore thigh after taking a knee to their thigh. All those little things, the rest, the rehab, getting fluids, all those things would have been very useful over the next 5-day period. But nope, not so fast. If now, after this loss in Game 5, Pacers were coming to Indy anyway. But now they play on Thursday, and then if they don't win that, they play again Saturday. Either way, assuming they win this series, they just have to win one of these final three. They've already lost one, need to win one of the final two. If they don't win Thursday, it'd be Saturday. Either way, the Eastern Conference semifinals between likely the Pacers and Knicks would begin Monday, like it or not. So you're looking at a much more condensed schedule, and also less time to prepare for your next opponent. That's probably a conversation for a different time. However, important to emphasize what they lost tonight by not winning. That's a concern. But no, to answer your question, Dean, I don't think it was an emotional home win that really led to a physical breakdown. I think this team has shown that all season that it's mentally weak, that it has struggled in the bigger moments for the most part. And here, they're on the road without the home crowd. We saw several things continue to pile up. In particular, there in the second quarter, things started snowballing. I mean, we saw Miles pass to an invisible body as guys weren't on the right page. Saw other players turn it over. Pascal Siakam goes to the free throw line 1 for 5. I looked it up for the series. For the series, he's 12 for 26. This is an elite guy the Pacers are prepared to offer the max to. And 1 for 5 from the free throw line tonight, just 12 points. I'll give him a break, though, based on some stuff I've heard of things he's had to deal with personally over the last couple days. But still, even then, big players show up in big games. And tonight, the Pacers had 0 big players show up, whether it was Siakam, whether it was Tyrese Halliburton, anybody out there. Somebody needed to step up, and the Pacers just did not get that. Conversely, you go down the line. Chris Middleton, again, has been special this series. I think 4 of the 5 games, he's had like 23-plus points. We had the 42 game. He had like 25 last game, 29 tonight, along with 12 rebounds and 5 assists. On top of that, Bobby Portis has a career game. You knew he was going to come out with an edge, certainly. I was surprised, actually, he didn't have any tussles tonight whatsoever, but he probably, wow, there was a spider crawling down. He probably felt horrible about the way in which he handled things last game and was not there for his teammates. And so he showed up very well in this one. 29 points, 10 rebounds to help the Bucks tonight. And then elsewhere, you got random good play. It was Patrick Beverley, 12 points in the second quarter. Second half, Malik Beasley, when the Pacers tried to come back, got to within 9, 7 minutes left third quarter. Third quarters are the best for the Pacers, as we've seen all season long. It was not tonight. Outscored 34-19. Tonight, it was their worst quarter. That's what's concerning, among many things. And by the way, in that second half, Beasley, all 18 of his points there. So the Bucks, and we'll get into what they did schematically a little bit different here. But more than anything, they just had the want to. They just had guys that were out competing the Pacers. There was a timeout early in on the game, I think 4 minutes in or something. On my feed that I was able to watch, we could hear Bobby Portis. And Bobby Portis was yelling, as you would expect, at his guys, we got to get the rebound. You know, everybody's counted against us. Nobody expects for us to win. Go get the effing rebound. And ultimately, you look at it, and the Bucks won the rebounding battle 44-36. So they did exactly what Bobby Portis and the rest of the team, I'm sure, had to say. MK Sinks, welcome back. I think you're 5 for 5 here on the postgame show. He says, felt like somehow I was watching game 1 again. Yeah, you're not wrong. With all the same mistakes, rotations that didn't make sense, and not being able to rise to the moment. Really unfortunate. Yeah, I agree with all that. A buddy of mine sent me a tweet out there that showed the rotation and how it's mostly been 8 through the last 3 games. Game 1, where the Pacers lost, went to 11. And tonight, where the Pacers lost and looked horrible, went to 11. I kind of get, but not really, that they tried to get almost too cute, it felt like. I want to rewatch it, but there to throw Doug McDermott out there early on, and he plays 5 minutes. I'm sitting there saying, this is a closeout game. You keep your guys in there, meaning your starters, your stars. You keep them in there. You put your you put your foot to their throats and lay it all and knock them out early. You don't want to give them any signs of hope. And the Pacers gave them signs of hope late in the first quarter. Pacers didn't score over the final couple minutes, gave them more signs of hope in the first 5 minutes of the second quarter. They had just one field goal over that 7-minute stretch of game time. That was absolutely the turning point. And then to your point, MK Sinks, yeah, things were out of sync just generally. The team had 1 turnover in the first quarter. They finished with 13. I think last game they had 7 or 8. That's more to their liking. This team's really good on assists, really good at not turning it over. Tonight, just 25 assists. Tyrese only had 6. And for some players, that would be great. For Tyrese, that's about 50% of what you expect. We all have grown to expect about 12 assists per game from Tyrese. This loss, by the way, this is on everyone. This goes from the coaching staff to all the players. I don't think there's anyone in particular to single out for great play, nor anybody just being awful. I think this was a total team loss that they just didn't get it done. Were not completely prepared. Then once they were out there, did not execute. And then failed to adjust properly from it in being a team that you would expect to rise to the moment. Like you said, never were really able to do that. Pump on here says if Portis wasn't stupid enough to get his ass ejected, Pacers would be down 2-3 right now. I don't know if that's the case. Home crowd, Pacers had it going, shot it well. And I will say, with this Pacers team, how reliant are they on shooting, on fast break, in getting full court offense versus the half court. I tweeted it again tonight, reiterating how we knew this was potentially going to be a concern. It's something that Tyrese Halliburton was concerned about and even texting the coaching staff about throughout the playoffs while watching at home last year. And so tonight, half court offense was troubling. That needed to be restarted, if you will, because they just weren't able to execute, get in the flow of things. And then when the times they did, shots just didn't go down. And then they didn't get to the free throw line very often. Just 8 of 13 in this one. Bucks didn't really get there very often either, but they made 16 of their 20 foul shots and able to get that win. I don't think the Pacers would have lost game 4 pump even if Portis didn't get ejected. But the Bucks, that didn't make things worse. Didn't make things better, right? Gosh, it's 1 a.m. I can't put words together. By the way, happy May 1st. I can't believe it's May already. But here we go. And as my friend Jake Query always likes to remind us, yes, Indianapolis, it is May. And we very well, if the Pacers can close out this series, we'll have some Pacers and Racers to talk about, which is always great in Central Indiana. Thanks again to everyone who has joined us. If you came in late, you can rewatch a replay of this afterwards or tune into the Fieldhouse Files podcast if you want to re-listen to it. Kevin says this team is so frustrating to watch sometimes, from the poor defense to watching the Pacers get lazy offensively and just jacking up bad threes. Yeah, I think the consistency is what you're getting at there. You've seen them play so well. You see the ball humming. You see the assists. You see the ball movement. And then you see tonight where they just don't execute. Guys make costly turnovers. They don't play completely well. They don't play team ball. And they generally have a tendency, many guys on this roster, is when there's a big hole, when they're down 12 or 17. All right, let me try to get it all back and on this possession, which obviously isn't realistic. Then they start being outside themselves and not play within the flow of things. That's something that they've got to work on. But generally, it's the character, it's the maturity. Perhaps that's the leadership. It's hard to say without being on the bench and hearing who's speaking up. I'd say visually, we see James Johnson speaking up. That's for sure. That's absolutely his role, by the way, on the bench. But this is also an example why you need a 3-and-D defender to maybe quiet Chris Middleton down a little bit. Aaron Nesmith's trying his best, and perhaps the Pacers need to try some different tactics as well, much like the Bucks are having to do. Maybe trap him a little bit more. I wouldn't mind seeing that, just like I wanted to see the Pacers trap Damian Lillard in the first games a little bit more as well. Make it difficult. If you're going to lose, make sure it's not because of Middleton. Make sure it's because of somebody else just goes off for a couple of crazy games. And when they do, you adapt and adjust and put a different defender on that guy, for example. But yeah, the defense, we knew the defense was going to be concerning. It's not a good defensive team. It's below average throughout the season. It was horrific until they made some changes in December. But now it's just okay, below average. Pump says Siakam's free throw shooting has been horrendous since joining. Get in the gym. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with getting in the gym. This guy works tirelessly. He works on his own. He's got his own trainer. He's got his own physical therapist. That's not what it is. It never is, by the way. I always laugh when fans say, hey, is this team practicing their free throw shooting? Because they're not shooting well. Of course they are. I was at Fever practice training camp earlier today. I loved what Christy Sides did late into practice as we're watching kind of the final 45 minutes there. They're running hard, pushing the pace, 5-on-5. And after that brief session's over, they all spread out and shoot free throws. That's not the end, though. Most teams in practice that way. Then they go back and do it all over again with 5-on-5. And so they want you to shoot those free throws late, and then they want you to shoot them again after you've pushed the pace. You're exhausted because guess what? Late in games or in overtime games like we saw earlier Tuesday with the 76ers and the Knicks, you got to make those free throws. First quarter, fourth quarter, overtime. But yes, I would completely agree in that Siakam's free throw shooting, both lately and since joining, has been alarming because he's better than that. He's like 46% right now, 12 of 26. That's not going to cut it in a game that, let's say this game was a 8-point game, fourth quarter, and he's 1 of 5 at the free throw line. That makes it a one possession game if you get fouled on a three. You got to take care of those details. And again, tonight, the Pacers failed in that department among many areas. Tell the Truth says, can the Pacers win playing Eagle? I'm not even egalitarian basketball. Every other team has go-to scores. Pacers seem to play everyone is equal. I get what you're saying there, using the big word on me here at 1 a.m. as I'm trying to read my multiple screens here. Generally, this team is best when they share the wealth, when they have 2 20-point scores and when they have, 7 guys with 15 or more points. The trouble is, and again, this is broadly speaking, in the playoffs, you need stars. You need playmakers, you need creators, and guys that can go off. If the team doesn't have it, you would have liked to see tonight Tyrese or Pascal in particular go off for 35 points, because then you would have felt like you had a chance. If you go down the Pacers line tonight, just the starters, 7, 12, 13, 12, 16. If you read me that line, I would tell you without hesitation, that's a Pacers loss. I don't care how many players are in double figures in the grand scheme of things. Yes, it's nice, but I rather know kind of what's it like at the top. The way this roster is made, yeah, you do want some more balance within that. And I think the stats will tell you over this season that they're better off when they have 6 or more players in double figures. I don't know what the latest number is. I can look it up after this. But what you do need is at least one of your stars to go off. And tonight, the Pacers didn't have any good players. They certainly didn't have any stars. MK Sinks, I love Toppin, but that tech was totally on him, letting Pat Bev get the best of him. That's beside this conversation. Although, to your point, that happened early second quarter when emotions were high. Pacers hadn't scored just one field goal in the last 7 minutes. I was thankful for him that that's all he did, that it was just a shove, that it said, I wasn't backing down from you. Because Beverly's trying to get you, get under your skin. He's trying to get you to play outside yourself. The fact that it was just a shove, just a technical, and nothing else happened the rest of the way. In hindsight now, I don't think it was that big a deal. I don't think it ignited Beverly, even though, yes, he went off, made a basket after that, then an and one. I think he scored 7 straight points, but I don't think that pissed off Beverly. That he just plays that way, and tries to get under your skin, tries to be the asshole, quite frankly, out there. Succeeded tonight, had a 12-point second quarter, but I don't think it boiled down to just say that technical. And I thought the officials got that one right. You could have done a double. I feel like Beverly was just trying to get the ball. Yes, he was annoying. He was a pest. And we saw Toppin shove him, but it certainly didn't need to be a flagrant at all. Pump again. They need to play team ball because neither Halliburton nor Siakam can score in isolation consistently. I disagree. I think Siakam absolutely can. Remember game 1 and game 2 when he had back-to-back 35-point games? He was exceptional, and I think that's what he did. Now they started to take away that, the way in which they defended, and maybe I should get into that a little bit here, and how they mismatch. And this was something Doc Rivers talked about after game 4 here at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, first of all, and saying, hey, look, you see our lineups, no Giannis, no Dame, we're shorthanded, we got to adapt. So that's led us down a different road, and in their prep and the way in which they got to muck it up, junk up the game a little bit. So Gallinari has played in the last couple of games. Tonight, 20 minutes, 4 points, plus 15. I don't care about plus or minus, but that is interesting, I think, considering the guy's barely played. And I bet most of you didn't even realize that Danilo Gallinari was still in the league. More to that, we saw how they defended a little bit differently, how they were switching a lot of different things, just playing them differently to the point where the Pacers then didn't adapt comfortably. So that's an area where the coaching staff for the Bucks I think got the Pacers there, and disappointing how the Pacers were unable to respond. What else do we got here? Kevin says Portis might be right when he called the Pacers front runners, and that they after they get a win, they get full of themselves. Nah, no, I think he's talking about how much they're yapping, how much they're talking. And every team is going to talk more when they're winning. Every team. And when they're losing, they're not, because they're too busy worried about trying to win. So I disagreed with Portis's comment right there. Of course, every team is going to be talking like the Pacers were when they were rolling. And to the Pacers' credit, by the way, leading into, say, Game 5 tonight, they weren't talking smack. They weren't talking trash or saying anything outside the game or leading up to it. They weren't giving them any locker room material whatsoever. So I think that, again, much like a Patrick Beverley comment, Bobby Portis was just getting a little wild, and that's how he feels. That's how he feels. But I disagree with his assessment. Mark deleted his comment, it appears. Pump adds their inconsistency in effort and maturity, but also how reliant they are on three-point shooting and their incompetence in half-court offense. Yeah, I think that's exactly what their problems are. Is if they don't have three-point shooting, then the half-court offense struggles, and that also generally means they're not getting stops. And if they're not getting stops, they're unable to play at, the pace that they want to. And they don't have the defense that can just settle down and lock guys up. And when the shots aren't falling like they were tonight, the offense is a difficult watch. And then guys overcorrect, guys try to take it themselves, and things just went very downhill after that second quarter rush, I thought, from the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Pacers just did not find an answer the rest of the way. 31 points in the first quarter. They scored 17, 19, and 25 in the following three quarters. That's 61 points the rest of the way after scoring half of that in one quarter alone. And we remember seeing them have a 40-point quarter. We've seen them have many 70-point halves. Well, they scored 61 points over three quarters. This Pacers team's not built to win that way. They're not going to win that way ever. And that's what we saw once again tonight in this 115-92 loss. So now where do you go from here, right? Pacers will get back late Wednesday morning, probably around 3 a.m. Probably hold a late afternoon practice, mostly film session. Probably consist of just getting shots up, because on the court, you're going to have tired legs. That starts to become a concern now, I would say, for the Pacers. When you mix in the traveling, when you mix in the games, we had an extra travel day between games 2 and 3 when the series shifted from Milwaukee to Indy. But now it's every other day, and they would get a couple extra days between games should they close it out on Thursday, because then you'd have Friday and Saturday before traveling Sunday, presumably to New York for the second round, I expect, on Monday. If they don't, and you go to Game 7, you're either done after that. And just because of this team and their makeup and their how they play in these big games, not well, and the maturity, this Pacers team cannot afford to get to a Game 7, because I don't think we can trust them. I don't think they've shown that we can trust them in a Game 7 should they get there. That's why it's so important for them to take care of business on Thursday, be able to stay home, take a day off, get back in the gym on Saturday, and then travel Sunday. That's kind of their current circumstances right now. Kevin says it feels like Rick is over and over having to preach effort to this team. How many examples does a young team need? Yeah, I would agree. It seems like we're hearing the same messages that were repeated back in October and November. And you get that back then. You get that even stretching maybe into December and experiencing big wins for the recent franchise in the in-season tournament. But then you got drilled by the Clippers there mid-December, and it's the same old thing. We didn't respond. Things didn't go well. We put our heads down, stopped making shots, didn't play to our game. It's the same old message. And at this point in the season, you're tired of hearing it. And if we're tired of hearing it, just imagine what the players are hearing. That's where I'm wondering, is there leadership in the locker room? That's where you're wondering who's stepping up maybe at halftime. I almost wonder in a game like this, do you even need the coaches to say anything? Or can it be player-led. And when you have a player-led locker room, you're way better off. You want leadership from coaches. You want a head coach you can believe in, and that can instill confidence in you and in the team. But players talk about it all the time in general. When you have a player-led locker room, you're going to have player-led success. And that's what the Pacers are looking for right now. There are a lot of positives. Don't get me wrong in this series. First of all, just experience, in particular with a lot of the young guys like Andrew Nembhard, even Tyrese in that group. It's only his 4th year, but I'm thinking more Nembhard. I'm thinking of Ben Shepherd, Aaron Nesmith, who was watching the playoffs a couple of years ago as the Celtics reached the finals but lost. But he wasn't really an active participant. Well, now he's not only an active participant, but he's guarding the best player right now on the Bucks game in and game out when Chris Middleton. And he's having to do that, even giving up a couple inches and probably a little size, but he has to because the Pacers don't have any other great options. That's one thing I want to see the Pacers go out and address in the offseason. They got their 4-man in Pascal Siakam. Now they really need a true 3, a guy that can defend that 6'8" wing. And maybe you throw Siakam on Middleton. Show him a different look. Give him a different matchup at times. And certainly trap, double a little bit more. Again, want to watch the film back coming up on Wednesday, May 1st already. But those are the little things you're considering. But yeah, Kevin, I completely agree. To your point, it does seem like the same message because it is. It's the same things being repeated. And the number one quote that I continuously go back to is what TJ McConnell had to say. He's 30 years old. He played for the Sixers, played for the Pacers. He's part of the process. He's been part of this rebuild for the Pacers. And he's going to be a coach one day. So I take what he's saying even more credence to it, just because it's probably the same message he might be saying to his huddle. And he's saying, hey, we're not a mature team. We haven't been playing mature basketball. And that's exactly, I think, what we saw from this Pacers team tonight. They didn't rise to the moment. There's going to be a gut punch. There's going to be a fight. You hope the Bucks don't just lay over, and they didn't. They came strong in that second quarter, went on a 17-2 run. They answered a Pacers 15-2 run, but the Pacers did not have a counter to that. That's what was a little bit concerning. So credit Doc Rivers and his staff for some tweaks schematically, and then more so just for the players for executing, for playing hard, being quicker to the ball. They had 11 turnovers. The Pacers had 13. Bucks shot 52%. Pacers at 44%. They seemingly won all areas of this game. And so, in turn, it was a blowout, 115-92. And this was in a series, season series, where the Pacers, entering this one, had won 7 of 9 meetings. The Pacers had a stranglehold on this matchup, but lost this one. So that was certainly disappointing. All right, any last questions here on YouTube Live? And again, appreciate the group of you that have stayed up to join me here late night. This is after hours. This is Fieldhouse Files after dark, maybe, if you will. I know there are going to be many more listeners that will be listening, perhaps on their drive into work this morning on the podcast, as I'll post it on there as well. But not a lot of good things to say from this one. The Pacers will certainly look at the film on the airplane right now as we're talking, and then again go over that, I think, on Wednesday during their practice. A lot of things to go over. I would expect and hope to see a couple tweaks from the Pacers standpoint. But outside of that, a lot of this is on the players to look to within, to themselves, to them as the collective. What do we want to be about? Do we want to rise to the moment? Do we want to advance to the second round? Are we going to get beat by a lesser opponent, considering Dame and Giannis are out? Like, those are the questions this team has to answer privately to themselves. I haven't got this question. I'm kind of surprised. Maybe it's because we all see kind of the writing on the wall. It's the status of Giannis, the status of Dame. And I would just say, based on what I've seen and both what Doc Rivers had said, I still think it's unlikely for either one of them to play. And I wouldn't risk it either if I'm the players or the Bucks, considering Dame is specifically an Achilles injury. It's a re-aggravation of it, grade 1 reportedly. And so you don't want a grade 2 or grade 3, which would be a full rupture that would take him out all next year. You don't want any of that, especially in a season where they're barely getting past the Pacers right now. They're not a contending team. They wouldn't beat the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then Giannis currently dealing with a calf strain. Those often will lead to an Achilles, like we saw with Kevin Durant. Dame didn't do anything on the court Doc Rivers said on Tuesday. Giannis did a little bit, but not very much. That tells me certainly not playing on Thursday, and I do not expect them the rest of the series. And again, I think that is the right call. Mark says, seems Giannis may come back game 6. Would be excited. No, I'm not seeing it. But I would, if I could guarantee he doesn't get hurt further, yes, I would love to see it. I would love to see the juice, as you said, and the different element. But from his health standpoint, I just seemingly don't think that's the right call. How many games do you think the Pacers can win in the second round? Max 5 to me against either New York or Philly. How many games do you think we can last? Meaning the Pacers. I assume you mean well, I'm not sure what you mean exactly, Pump, because I think the Pacers very well could win that second round meeting. It just depends which team shows up. I think it'll be New York. Philly, I mean, Joel, I'm stunned with how well he's been able to play despite being injured, despite having Bell's palsy. Like Nazmi Trulong couldn't play the G League season because he had Bell's palsy. Plus, Joel Embiid's hurt. And obviously, there's severity cases. I haven't thought too much about how many games the Pacers could potentially push that to. It seems like that would be 6 or 7 game series if they faced New York. I could see them winning that, but we'll get there when and if the Pacers ultimately get there. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up. It's after 1:30 in the morning here. I'm slurring words, and we have a long day ahead of us coming up. More Pacers coverage at fieldhousefiles.com. Plus, I'll be at the Fieldhouse all day as it's Fever Media Day. And man, how about Caitlin Clark and the interest level? I haven't seen anything like it. The only thing close, I think, is Taylor Swift coverage. I think there's Taylor Swift, there's Caitlin Clark, and then there's everything else. So I'll continue to cover that and adding to that just because there is demand, and so I'm going to meet the supply. Absolutely. So visit all my work there at fieldhousefiles.com. Plus, a lot more I have to say about this Pacers series and some interviews and a lot more. So I appreciate everyone joining me here on the Fieldhouse Files live podcast on YouTube or on the actual podcast, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining.